KOA News Time 6:19. Teaching financial literacy to younger generations could be a lost art for many, but for our next guest, it's what he does.
He is a local high school business teacher, author of First to a Million, A Teenager's Guide to Achieving Early Financial Independence, and advocate for overall financial literacy. Joining us live in the KOA Common Spirit Health studio is Dan Sheeks. Dan, thanks for coming in this morning.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Now, I know I'm probably speaking for Marty and Pat as well. When we were in school, there was no such thing as financial literacy. I mean, I can definitely say I haven't really used a lot of trigonometry in my daily life, but I think that's something.
If you had home ec, but I mean, that covers, that's a capture, a catch-all for everything.
But how important is teaching financial literacy to kids in school, and is it becoming more prevalent than it was back in our era?
Well, first of all, same thing. When I was in high school a long time ago, this was not really an option, but I mean, it's so important. It's critical for young people, really everyone, to have good money sense and know how money works and how to invest. It can change so many aspects of our lives, make our lives more fulfilling. Unfortunately, it hasn't been a strength of the education system for a long time, but that is changing. The trend is going in the right way. Unfortunately, Colorado is kind of lagging in that trend, but nationwide, we are seeing it become more and more important, which is great news.
You know, I think this is tough for a lot of parents who, by the way, I think we could do an adult literacy class too, quite a bit of them, because I think a lot of parents are starting from a place where they don't necessarily have a lot of knowledge about financial matters. And what do you say to parents who don't know where to start? And they might not be completely sound with their own money thoughts either.
That is a great question, because I run into that all the time, where parents are they're not confident enough. They feel intimidated themselves, and they're like us. They're our generation. They didn't get this education when they were in school, and so for them to talk to their kids about financial literacy, personal finance, they don't feel adequate. But I would say to parents out there, suck it up. You do have knowledge that you can share with your kids. You've made mistakes. You manage your household budget. You know more than your kids, and having money conversations at home, even if they're not perfect, is better than nothing.
Do you think it's the fear factor of why maybe parents don't tell their kids, or kids, young people, like my son, we talk about money on a regular basis, and my son goes to Cherry Creek High School. He does have a class where they're teaching some of these things, so maybe they're bringing it back, Dan, and it's an effort. But do you think a lot of it is the fear about talking about money, and that puts people to the side not even to approach the subject?
I think it goes back to, in our society, money is kind of viewed as a taboo subject. Even my very best friends, we don't talk about money too much. And even in families where, the people you live with, you trust and you know them very well, money just isn't talked about, which is unfortunate. I think one of the things we can do as parents is talk to our kids about money, involve them in the conversations, involve them in the small business that is your household. There's money coming in, there's money going out. When you sit down to pay bills with your kids, involve them in the process, have them click the mouse, have them open the app on your phone and make the transfer, include them in the money conversations. Don't let money, when I grew up in my household, we didn't talk about money, and most of my friends are the same way. And so it's a trend that we need to break.
Now, Dan, you said earlier that Colorado is lagging behind the rest of the country when it comes to teaching kids financial literacy. So what needs to be done? Is it something legislatively? Do the local school districts need to be, lobbied to put more of these classes in, or what needs to be done to improve things in Colorado?
The landscape in Colorado, unfortunately, is lagging behind. There are some individual schools in some school districts that have taken that step to make the benchmark is a standalone semester-long personal finance class as a requirement for high school graduation. And there are a few scattered around Colorado that do that, but as a state, it is not a legislative requirement. Roughly about 20 states in the U.S. do have that in place now, most of them in the last 5 years. Hopefully Colorado can get there. So yes, it would need to be a legislative change at the state level, and then have all the schools and school districts follow suit.
When do you start? I mean, at what age? I remember having an economics class when I was in high school where we did some mock investing and stuff like that. But I was a senior then. It sounds maybe almost a little late in the game to get started on something like that.
It's never too early to start talking about money with our kids, but I think you really want to stress and focus on that education towards the end of high school, when the students themselves can kind of see, oh, this stage of my life is almost over. I'm about to go out into the real world. paying attention to how money works is probably something that's going to suit, and better my future. So I'm willing to pay attention now, but it's never too soon to start.
Dan, is one of the simplest solutions with any of this is if you have a young person, if they have a job, because it's immediate to them, they get paid. If they get a pay stub, they can see what taxes are taken out. In some instances, many of them are probably exempt, but and they actually have it in their hand, and then they realize, well, I want to do this, this, and this. Is that actually a first step too? Saying, kids, go get some sort of job to learn what it's like to earn, and then how it's spent after that.
I'm a huge advocate of all teenagers having some kind of income, whether it's a side hustle or a part-time job. But our teenagers are very busy. I see it in my classroom every day. But in the summer when they're not in school, at least be doing something, even if it's just as simple as babysitting, mowing lawns, doing chores for a neighbor, some kind of income, and then have them feel, that's where I learned the value of a dollar. And that's where I learned how to manage money at a young age. So I think that's important that we have our young people earning money in some capacity.
So Dan, tell us about your book, First to $1 Million.
So First to $1 Million is a book that basically it introduces the idea of early financial independence to someone who's not familiar with what that is. My book is geared towards young people. The subtitle is A Teenager's Guide to Early Financial Independence, but it's not just for young people. It's for anyone who wants to know more about the strategies needed to reach early financial independence, which early financial independence is really getting to a place of financial independence before age 65, which is where most people, on average, 65 is where we get there.
I'm going to wrap up with one final question, and I'm using the term now catch-all for this. Since you work with young people, you work with seniors, they're contemplating college, those sorts of things. We have it in the news cycle all the time about college loans, college debt. Do you think some of the things that we see with this issue where people get out over their skis with getting way behind with money, with school and those things, do you think some of that could have been mitigated if maybe they had the classes to realize, look, you take a loan, here's the interest rate, here's the business of what it costs to do this? Do you think some of those issues could have been mitigated or maybe short-circuited if kids understood the finances a little better?
Absolutely. I think, the student loan debt crisis that we have is a symptom of the bigger picture. But I wouldn't place that on 16, 17, 18-year-olds. I really think it's the parents. And, we are a financially illiterate country, generally speaking. If the parents would have known the repercussions of student loan debt, I think they would have made different decisions for their kids going to college. And so it's a group effort. We're all in this together, and hopefully the education can help stymie those issues in the future.
Dan Sheeks, high school business teacher, author, advocate of financial literacy. Thanks so much for joining us this morning on Colorado's Morning News.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. 627 Colorado's Morning News.